Hello and good morning. Welcome to another installment of Profiles in Tacticalness. So today we will be talking about another semi-hidden class. That would be the Angel Knight. I say semi-hidden because it's kind of gone back and forth as far as how hidden this class is. Basically, they can't really seem to decide whether an Angel Knight is kind of its own thing or if it's something people can turn into. Kind of throughout the series, they've gone a few different directions with that. So let's go ahead and start off with March of the Black Queen. So in March of the Black Queen, they actually had their own little like floating island that you could go to, and they're like, yeah, we just hang out up here. We just don't really go visit people because they're not nice enough. And yeah, basically there's a whole thing where the Black Queen in question there ends up causing the angels to get embroiled in this war of theirs. So you end up seeing two different versions of them, the cherubims and the seraphims, which, yeah, both of them are basically just upgrades of the same thing. So the cherubim is what you end up starting with, the seraphim is what they end up turning into. They're pretty much a relatively decent frontline attacker with a back row attack that allows them to exercise any undead. And on top of that, they've actually got some pretty decent attack in both places to boot. They can potentially be pretty tanky. It varies, obviously, but by and large, they're going to be one of those kind of mid-range kind of units that shows up. It typically tends to be kind of like when you don't want to have a healer, but you still want to have the ability to exercise, and you don't exactly want to sacrifice a lich for your front line or keep a fairy around. So they're a nice little thing that's a little bit easier to raise up than a fairy, in my personal opinion. Um, in both versions, both March of the Black Queen and OB64, they don't really have too much in terms of huge trickiness to use for them. Really, it's just, they're kind of there as a general purpose type of soldier with the ability to exercise. So once we get into Let Us Cling Together, that's the first part where they finally said, okay, look, they're kind of just what happens to people eventually. They're not really their own separate race anymore. So starting in that one, if you had a female unit that had a lawful alignment and got lucky, they'd be able to essentially die and be instantly revived as an Angel Knight. This made them suddenly have the ability to fly. They got a few extra abilities, like the ability to mess with people's TP. They got the ability to use some more holy equipment and all of that sort of thing. In general, or not equipment, I should say, abilities rather. So it was pretty much a flat upgrade to almost any unit that they could potentially be. They were almost universally amazing, and once again, they got the ability to exercise other units. Uh, so once we get to Knight of Lodis, though, they decided to up the requirements a little bit more. So you no longer had to sacrifice a unit, but you still could turn your generic guys into Angel Knights. Bear in mind that actually in Knight of Lodis you could actually even turn your uniques into Angel Knights. However, for story purposes, they were considered dead at that point. But essentially, what you could do is you had to uh, get a emblem called Guide of the Fallen Angel. You got that from actually reviving them from death once. So they died, they come back, they got that emblem, and now they're basically unlocked for if they have lawful alignments, they have a chance to come back as an angel. So essentially, if you've already revived somebody once, there's a chance they may turn into an angel. You can't turn them into anything else after that point, but as before, there's really little reason that you'd want to change them into anything else, since they are one of the stronger units in the game. Interestingly enough, if you leave somebody as a cleric, apparently that's one of the better ways to actually have somebody get all of the necessary stat requirements to turn into an angel. But alright, aside from that, then we finally get to the Lucht remake, and I don't know what they were thinking here with the original remake. They're actually one of those ones that, in terms of reviews of all kinds of different classes for the series, uh, in this game in particular, they wind up coming pretty close to the list, just because, like a few of the other classes, you have to go through a lot of effort to actually make them work. I would say similar to how you have to go well out of your way to make a Dark Knight work, or a Terror Knight rather, or trying to make a Rune Fencer work for any non-unique unit, that sort of thing. So here's the problem. First of all, the time that you're getting access to them is like this is not even late game, this isn't even post game. This is like post game that you're getting access to them. Essentially, you have to have already beaten the game once, You have to have already probably gone. If you're going to turn one of your own units into an Angel Knight, you would have had to go through Palace of the Dead, essentially get a Book of the Dead, transform somebody into a skeleton, then drag them all the way over to San Bronza, go fight things there until you get an Ensanguined Rood, and then bring them to a specific floor once again in order to actually turn them into an Angel Knight. There's brief cutscenes just showing that happening, but uh, it's very poorly explained. I did a guide on this a little while ago, just to kind of show how it's done, but it's a little bit of a process. Actually, I left out the part where you have to turn somebody into a zombie in order to fully transmigrate them into an angel. Any dang ways. So once you actually go through all the effort to get them, once you're already in the, you're already in Coda at that point if you're in the San Bronze Ruins, what do you actually get for all of that effort? So first of all, you got to retrain them from level 1. Awesome. Second off, they get access to Divine and Draconic. They don't get access to the full range of Draconic abilities, but most of the buffs. Ceres Pact, Poignant Melody, which is basically has an ability to do a charm. Again, if you're really still relying on a single charm at that point, it's you're gonna have other problems. You have other units that can do charm at longer range and all of that sort of thing. You have Evil's Bane, which basically increases damage against Umbra units. So again, if you're having problems with zombies, just give them Balder or something like that. Evil's Bane seems way too specific. You get Silent Song, which has a chance to silence. Maybe if it was guaranteed, it'd be worth it, but to go through all that effort to get the ability to maybe silence, you've probably had the ability to silence from the very beginning of the game. Rampart Shadow. It's actually very useful on an Angel Knight because they can just plop it down wherever since they can fly. Requiem, it's a medium range that does heavy light damage on multiple undead, but I don't believe this one actually. I don't believe that one actually stops them from coming back. Then you get Absolution, which negates the effect of Condemn. This is literally a thing that can only come up in, I believe, 2 battles in the entire game. So no reason whatsoever to ever get it. Sanctuary Shadow, basically Rampart Aura, but it only affects zombies. So kind of pointless there. Day of Reckoning, it's one that resets MP and TP. I mean, I guess it's useful. Basically, that's their ability that they've had since the Snezlucht and Knight of Lodis. And then lastly, they get Celestial Song, which heals zombie status. Which there's an item that was able to do that up to this point. Anyway, so all right. Their abilities aren't exactly terribly amazing there. So you'd think, they can maybe do a whole bunch of casting. Well, they don't get access to spellcraft, despite the fact that they specifically get access to divine abilities, despite the fact that previously one of their big go-to things was the fact that they could just shoot heaven lasers at people and just like annihilate stuff all over the place. Yeah, they don't even get spellcraft. So a little bit of a bummer there. If you go and you transfer a whole bunch of different skills to them, they can potentially be a really tanky frontliner. It's, in my opinion, it's just not worth it in the original remake. Interesting note, by the way, since they are still classed as a person, you can actually transfer if you have another guy that died. You can actually transfer their skills over to an Angel Knight, so they do still count as a person. But all right, moving on. Let's. Oops, I appear to have moved it to the wrong place here. And let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. So, here we have the One Vision variant. And yes, like all the others, he has made them awesome. Because you know what? If you're going through all that effort, they better friggin' well be awesome. So first off, still Divine and Draconic for their magic abilities. Instead of just swords and cudgels, they get spears, instruments, sidearms, bows, crossbows, all of that as well. Also, they're the only human unit that's able to gain access to anatomy, even though they're technically human or whatever else. As far as why this is important in One Vision, when it comes to the racial skills in general, if you don't know what they do, they improve your attack and defense against a specific type of character. Since human units are like the go-to, they're pretty much everywhere. This one is kind of a biggie, and that's actually why it was removed on a lot of human characters, or actually all human characters except for the angel. Um, it was a little bit overpowered. So we have Celestial Song here. This is essentially HP infusion, except in an area. So a fantastic heal move could potentially do, I believe it's 275, that's the max, to an entire area. You've got Poignant Melody redone here, so it removes all TP from targets in an area and does an equal amount of damage to HP. So potentially just fight altering altogether there. Day of Reckoning, which resets RT, TP, and MP in an area here. Uh, Range of 1, area of 3, but yeah, that's one that again potentially fight changing right there. Requiem deals light damage to undead and destroys their remains. So if you end up killing them with this, they are instantly exercised. Silent Song removes all MP from targets in the area and does an equal amount of damage to HP. So just like the other one over here, Poignant Melody, Silent Song essentially will do the same thing to MP. So this could potentially one-shot a mage under the right circumstances. Poignant Melody could potentially do some pretty severe damage to one of the more frontliney type units. You got Evil's Bane, basically the same that it was before. It just increases melee damage dealt to Umbra units. It's really weirdly specific, so I don't think this one's very good, but it's there. Seal Evil turns a single undead to stone for an extended period of time, and I believe this is something like 20 turns or so. It's a really long time that they end up being stuck as a rock. That aside, they get Absorb MP. They don't necessarily need it, but if you want them casting, they have that there. Tactician 2, very useful for all of these TP abilities they have at the bottom. Seraph's Pact, because of course. You've got max TP, and actually, correction, it's up to 300 that they'd be able to heal an entire area. For some reason, I thought they only got max TP 3. They do get max TP 4. So they get Field Alchemy. I don't think they have the throwing skill, though. I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe they do. And what else here? We've got Sanctuary 1 and 2, essentially making them more or less immune to zombies. Now, Sanctuary 1 and 2 combined with, if I can find it here, Palladium. This is the same thing as what used to be, the Rampart Aura for zombies kind of thing. So this, like on a knight, it's kind of a maybe ability, but on an angel knight, if you put a bunch of these together and essentially just make a trap for zombies, you can just have the angel knight fly in. Go ahead and use like let's say you have somebody holding that line, you can give them Evil's Bane. You could use Seal Evil to take care of the ones in front, and then essentially you go to Requiem here, and you can just go and nuke and exercise an entire area of zombies at one time. It's great. So that is potentially just, well, a zombie death trap, more or less. So potentially very useful there. You've got your usual words here, efficacy 2 and clarity 3. Um, Bash is maybe useful for them because they'd be able to go and smash stuff off of cliffs, which is always fun. Clarity and efficacy, maybe not so much because they're going to be using their TP abilities more or less. Rampart Aura could be useful. It just depends on how you put them. Instill Light, very handy for the sake of that little extra damage. They get their usual parry, deflect, overpower, all that kind of thing. There's really no reason for these other augments here aside from their equipment, but you've got Augment Light if you want it. Usual racial abilities, and yeah. So one build that I actually really liked, and I don't believe I actually set up with these guys, is setting them up with sidearms. So yeah, if I were to go over here and go ahead and give these guys sidearms, if you're unaware, with One Vision, sidearms actually got changed. Well, all throwing items and blowguns got changed into sidearms. So what you can do, you can actually, for example, give these guys a shield and like let's say a spiked bola or whatever, and essentially this will give them a very good ranged ability that they can use from wherever. Because of the fact that they can fly really well, they're able to go and get very nice positions with these. They can basically get away with a lot of stuff using this. I really don't know why I went for a spear instead of a thrower build with these guys, but it's fine. Want to go ahead and show off that. Go ahead and have them learn their sidearm abilities here. Actually, I believe they might already know it. I'm unable to find it here. Huh, that's unusual. They might already know it. No, they do not. So I don't know why this one... I believe I'm actually just missing something incredibly obvious here. Yeah, there we go. uh, I'm just being unobservant. That's what's going on here. But yeah, sidearms, easily one of the better things that you can do with these guys. Personally, I always love sticking spears on things, but yeah, if you can go and just use a bola to make all this happen, it's absolutely amazing. They get crossbows. Again, I still think sidearms are the stronger choice, since obviously they're going to be having the ability to fly, so they're going to be able to rain death down from basically anywhere. Not to mention you've got an instill on a sidearm user. That's potentially devastating. So I'm going to go ahead and just let these guys run on AI here, because, you got to do that sort of thing. But alright, so overall, as far as classes go, I think they're actually worth the effort now. That was really their problem up to this point, that they just weren't... In the original remake, they just weren't really worth the effort that you had to put in to get them. Because again, if you weren't aware, you had to take any one of your units, let them die in a fight, turn them into a zombie, get a Book of the Dead, drag them to floor, I think it was 13 or so, of Palace of the Dead, transform them into a skeleton. You have to take off all those fleshy zombie bits. They're just all extra dead weight that they're carrying around. So you had to go and transfer all of those over to... Um, what was I saying here? So yeah, you had to turn them into a zombie, or into a skeleton, or ghost, whichever they happen to be. Oh, I should also probably mention these guys have access to a lot of armors, so they're pretty amazingly tanky. I think they're the tankiest flying unit, if I'm not mistaken, aside from Tammuz as a flying, hoplite or something like that. Um, it Actually, that's another quick note here. If you weren't aware, the neutral trio, is in the three semi-unique characters that you get in the neutral route, are actually unique characters, and Tammuz in particular is a Hawkman that has access to lizard classes, so he can be a flying hoplite and be very tanky. But what was I saying here? Oh yeah, so after you turn them into a ghost or skeleton, then you have to go to Sambronza, you have to go get another item, and then you basically drag them up to the pedestal there, turn them into an angel, and then wonder what you've possibly done with your life, because it has taken so long to get a class that really doesn't do much. So yeah, bit of a downer originally. Absolutely loving them in one vision so far. In a couple runs now, I actually have bothered to go through the effort to get them. Another note that I should mention is the fact that they're actually much easier to mass produce in one vision now. So in case you weren't aware, previously you were limited to... most of the class change items were limited to only one time, or only one that you could carry at a time. They were classed as a unique item. So, for example, Book of the Dead, I believe you could only carry one of those. In Sanguined Rood, I know you could only carry one of those. Ring of the Dead, you could only ever carry one. And there really was no reason for it, because all it would do was go and force you to go and basically force you to go and redo those same fights again. It's not really like there was any actual challenge there. It was just a time sink. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? Angel Knights actually are the only ones that are able to heal now. Are your only frontline units capable of using all the healing abilities. So that is an excellent little point to them as well. And all right, let's see, is there anything I'm missing about these guys? I mean, I don't think so. They're pretty fantastic overall. They're able to keep a lot of things going. Oh yeah, right here, they get access to the burst abilities. So there are two spells for each element that are called bursts. Essentially, they do crushing damage in an area, and you have different AOE's based off the different skills there. But yeah, they're actually very good abilities. However, only 3 classes gain access to them. So the earliest is the Spellblade. They get access to all of the elemental ones. You get access to them as dragoons as well, although they're not terribly good at utilizing them. Like, for example, in the case of the Spellblade, they're typically going to be close to the front line anyway, so it's kind of an AOE attack of opportunity in many ways. For the Dragoon, it's mostly there's a bunch of weak guys here, I've got nothing better to do, I'm gonna go put a friggin' lightning explosion over there. And yeah, in the case of the Angel Knight, though, They're going to be a far more effective caster than they ever were in vanilla. So they're going to be very good. They're going to be able to heal. They're going to be able to do all of this just ridiculously good stuff. And here we go. They're even getting heal 3s and stuff like that. In case you weren't already aware, all of the heals scale up now, so they're actually able to get like full bar heals off of this thing. It's pretty darn fantastic. And then, if they have TP instead of MP, they're able to use their AoE heal ability from their TP bar instead. So they're pretty much like a flying super spellblade in many ways. But yeah, they like just about every ability now that I think about it. Aside from Fated Circle, they don't get any accuracy boosting abilities, but they're able to do the same heal ability in an area. They're able to do the same bursts. They have access to similar weapons. In fact, it might potentially be very useful to run a kind of odd type of build in which you have heavy armor, sidearms, and a spell book. And if you have that, essentially you could use the spell book for situational damage whenever something isn't taking enough spell damage. You could essentially go use that, give them a rupture, it'll cause them to take more magic damage, and then you could essentially just back off and continue using the sidearm there. So that could potentially be very good. Also, potentially maybe set them up as a type of lore character. What this consists of is giving them any of the side-graded magic hats. This reduces their resistance, which makes them a target for magic spells, which you can combine with Absorb NP. And essentially, this will allow them to recharge themselves constantly, as well as heal themselves while essentially wasting enemy turns. So essentially, they are there to cause the other guy to waste their time, and yeah, can potentially be very good that way. Now, as you can see here, even running on AI, these guys are doing a pretty great job. They're having no trouble keeping this fight together. I I think I've covered everything it is here. They're finally worth the effort. They're finally worth the effort. So, hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully this was a little bit informative. And yeah, have a good one. And I expect to see another one soon. Take care.